you? Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Do you find photos like that? Look at Nanny Di and Betty with a sticker. Some idiot packed it away with a sticker on the back of another photograph, and they just piled them up.
Where was it packed away? Is it me that's done this?
Someone just piled
who's
up
the someone?
5 photos.
If it's not you, who's the someone?
Well,
I wouldn't have done that.
Babe, you would. If I was to say don't do that because of the stickers, you'd immediately do that thing like, oh, don't be so ridiculous.
But isn't that a cute picture? Look at Nanny Di and my mum, so much younger. God. I remember that day so clearly. It was all so shiny and brand new with Maddie. I was saying to Mark. And Teddy was just like the proudest granddad in the whole world, wasn't he? He just loved it because the waiters were making a fuss of Maddie. And we have a nickname for Maddie, Madelushka. And the waiter thought her name was actually Madelushka. And Teddy couldn't get over it, could he? They have called her Madelushka. They are calling her Madelushka. I'll never forget that.
But you remember, part of that was compounded by the fact that the waiter was out there completely annihilated drunk.
He was.
It
was funny.
Staggering into the side room, swigging.
Yeah. That was the day when we took your family, Nanny, Thelma, and everybody. That was the day he was really drunk.
Well, it was the same restaurant.
But anyway, that was the day pre-pandemics, pre-fires,
That was pre-19.
I know, but I'm just saying those
ago.
days when we thought we had stuff to worry about, we didn't have anything to worry about. Really, comparatively, now where I feel like everything we're worrying about everything.
Oh, Lauren has a barbed comment. It can't be Nadia. She doesn't tidy up.
Where?
Must have been you, Mark.
I do actually.
Yeah,
do you know what, Mark?
Spends most of her time tidying
Mark, tell them how much I tidy up. I hate my life sometimes because I spend so long clearing up this fucking kitchen.
I'm just going to flick over to 4G. That's better.
Yeah. I literally hate my life sometimes because we do a lot in this kitchen, right? This kitchen really is the heart of the home.
It's an industrial kitchen.
So I spoil everybody because I like to make everybody whatever they want to eat. So breakfast, lunch and dinner, it's what you fancy. And then I just make whatever anybody wants, they fancy. I do it, I enjoy it. And then I'll cook dinner. Then we'll cook stuff for the channel, meals, chaotic cook, something for Instagram.
Sunday
and Sunday show. So every time I cook, it's carnage afterwards. However hard I try. So like now, the kitchen is totally tidy. But in a minute, oh God.
Sorry,
boring,
guys.
Sorry, guys.
This isn't Wi-Fi. This is heat.
Heat flares.
It's got to just be all sorts of stuff because that's 4G. What you're getting is 4G. Let me try you one more time.
Ah, na, 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 na. That looks better. Yeah. So basically, I am always clearing up. It's just I'm the most unsuccessful clearer upper. It's gorgeous at the minute.
You're not unsexful.
But in half an hour, it'll be carnage.
Solomon.
You've seen how many times I've cleared up my room upstairs, and I get it perfect. And in 48 hours, it's like a gremlin comes into my room and messes it up.
I think a gremlin comes into your head and messes it up. Solomon makes films, wants to sort of bring us down to earth. Well, we did have the war in Iraq to worry about 18 years ago.
Yeah, we did.
God, quite pointed comments today, guys.
But it didn't feel so far away from for me because of the connections, because of that part of the world and my father, and it was a really big deal, and it was horrific. But we weren't feeling it as close as we are now. And listening this morning to what's going to be happening in Europe when Russia cuts off the gas. That feels like war, doesn't it? When Europe is going to go cold because Russia won't give them the gas.
Yeah, well, especially when you know that most Germans are looking at trees and thinking about chopping them down and using them for wood. A couple of people commenting already on the UK wildfires. Eva Sylvester says many UK wildfires go unreported. It's true. I mean, as far back as I remember, whenever my nan and granddad used to live near the New Forest, you'd always be passing through the New Forest and there would be the evidence of a fire. But I mean, obviously, what happened in the last 24 hours was unprecedented. And especially, I think the most evocative images or the most shocking images were Wennington, where homes were completely consumed by flames. Horrifying and shocking and petrifying, and it just gives us a flavour of what people in Australia, Sydney, LA, you know, lots of places where
This is
we
the-
often hear of
yeah,
wildfires.
LA,
Yeah,
yeah.
you hear of them sort of just kind of, and we kind of, it's terrible, isn't it? Because you just go, okay, well, that's what you
You
expect
do,
for
it's
that
just
region.
human, isn't it, that you do, and you dismiss it because it's not, you've got other stuff that you're worrying about that day. But this has been,
Yeah, major incidents were
Yeah.
announced everywhere. Why is my phone now going dark? Can you see
I
that?
think it's the solar flares, like you say.
What's going on?
But you know, on this, I was listening on the radio this morning to, you know, what is it? It's just the carnage that ensued yesterday because there just aren't enough fire stations.
Well, Sadiq Khan,
So many fire stations
Yeah.
have been closed down, and there was a fireman saying people are leaving in their droves, and being a fireman used to be a job for life. But they have squeezed and squeezed them. I know a couple of people that are married to firemen, and they all have to do second jobs, and that's not good because they're having to take downtime. They're supposed to rest, but they can't live on what they're being paid.
Sadiq Khan says it was the busiest day for the fire service in London since the Second World War.
Mighty, really?
Yeah, that's quite something, isn't it? On a normal day, the fire service would receive, roughly speaking, 350 calls across London. Yesterday, they received more than 2,600.
And he's put out a call
Wow.
today, just in case you haven't heard it. Please, 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 nobody have a barbecue
Yeah.
because we've got so much dry grass and just one, and it's just a total ban on barbecues. And like people might not realise that. They might think, oh, the weather's called a bit. If you see a neighbour having a barbecue, just say really nice that, well, you might not know, but it's just because
But
that
remember
could
to
be
say
your
it
house.
nicely, because you don't want them
Yeah.
coming at you with a
Yeah, oh
with
God,
a-
you didn't know.
with a
They've actually,
skewer.
yeah, you got to do it like this. Oh God, maybe I didn't know.
Yeah.
Somebody only just told me I was going to have a barbecue.
People going out now.
Yeah,
going,
you have to be
What's
so
that smell? Have you noticed
careful.
everyone does it? What's that smell?
Who's having a
Who's having a
barbecue?
barbecue?
I get so angry when somebody else is having a barbecue and I'm not.
Yeah.
But no barbecues.
Isn't it
Because,
funny?
my
It must
God,
be.
you could take down your whole street. Isn't that petrifying?
It must be certain types of people. When the sun comes out and the heat comes on, the last thing my DNA says to me is, "Oh, let's start cooking outside." It's really weird. Yours does, doesn't it?
Yes,
I
no,
don't-
it's in my DNA.
Yeah, I don't
It's
get
my
it.
DNA. It's
Yeah.
being a foreigner, half
Faith
foreign.
Goodman, we are having a barbecue, but cooked in oven and kitchen.
Well, that's not a barbecue.
Well, you can eat outside. You can eat outside. But yes, you're right. Echoing that, Mr. Khan has urged people not to have barbecues, especially today, because I was expecting there to be an absolute downpour. I got a text from my mum
Yeah,
last night
we
saying
need
there's a
that for this
hurricane in
grass.
East London, but I
Yeah.
thought hurricane. I read that to mean that there was rain as well, but I don't think there was rain.
But also, people, please be careful with your cigarettes. One cigarette just flicked,
don't
and you
flick your
could take
cigarettes.
down people's homes. You know, it's just,
Yeah.
just got to be so careful.
So 2 rows of terraced houses went up in flames in Wennington. 4 detached, semi-detached houses, 2 outbuildings, garages, stables, 5 cars were destroyed. 100 firefighters were called to the sprawling fire. And there were other incidents. Some were in Croydon, I know that I heard that. And some of them happening along the verges of roads, which of course causes all sorts of kind of potential obstruction for drivers.
They were
and things
talking
like that.
this morning about how councils have been doing a lot of this wilding in open areas now, and they're questioning the sanity of that because
Look at that
there's
fire in
lots of
Dagenham,
long grass.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not even
But
one of the...
Dagenham, but they were calling fire engines from Hampstead.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of where the fire engines are being
Uxbridge.
called with all the will in the world, it's going to take them an hour to get there.
Yeah.
Well, that's too long.
Let's see what you guys are saying. Lauren, my house. Oh, sorry, you've gone. Zoe, it's actually insane and scary. This country can't handle this level of heat. Climate change needs to be spoken about more, so many just dismiss it constantly. I agree. Gemma H, I woke up extra depressed today because of the past 2 days. I had a past to do nothing and not be a failure. There's no past today. Oh, Gemma, sweetheart.
But I know what you
I know what
mean,
you feel.
Gemma, because, and I'm not somebody that suffers with depression, but I likened the last few days to those early days of lockdown where you did have a pass not to engage fully, to be able to say, well, no, I can't. Because we find it so hard to say, no, we can't, don't we? So I think an awful lot of people are feeling that way.
Just try not to feel rushed. I think that's the sense of, the
Yeah.
feeling is one of a sort of pile up happening in the head, isn't it? It's a sort of saying, oh, fuck God, move. Fiona Reed, bins at one of our petrol stations on fire in early hours. Don't know if it was deliberate, but thankfully spotted quickly. Oh, Lyndhurst, Elizabeth Gordon, near Lyndhurst a couple of days ago on the road verge. Fires in Lyndhurst in the New Forest, absolutely.
Oh, lovely New Forest,
Oh my God,
Jesus.
Creatorholic. My local pub had a bonfire yesterday. I can't believe how stupid some people can
Yeah,
be.
somebody said to us yesterday on the live that their neighbour was doing a bonfire. It's like, really? How can anyone be that stupid?
Zoe's feeling very down with her mental health with the last couple of days. I mean, it's that sense of
Yeah.
constriction.
Mark has,
It's that
haven't you?
sense of restriction and claustrophobia and what have you. We're going to have to move on. 'Cause I've got an appointment at 11 and I have to use this phone. So we're going to crack on. So, of course, the awfulness of the fires is just another reminder of what lots of places in the world live through. It's that funny thing of only when you go through it yourself do you begin to have an extra aspect of compassion for those who are going through it all the time elsewhere. Just a quick thing. I don't want to talk about the Tories too much, but...
Because they seem to take up all of our lives when they should be helping our lives.
But I thought it was interesting that, yesterday we are now down to, Kemi Badenoch has come out, has been voted out. So we've got Rishi, we've got Liz Truss, and we've got Penny Mordaunt. But here's the thing, and Nadia made this point yesterday, for all this kind of new start, reset buttons
Fresh
and all that
start.
kind of that fresh start, Rishi's already trading out those people who vote for him to vote for Liz Truss because he feels he'll be able to beat Liz Truss more convincingly than Penny Mordaunt. How's that clean? How's that fair? How is that a new start?
How? So we're going into
Even
this
Ian Dale
with corruption
in
and
the voting.
dirty tricks round the back door. Ian Dale said yesterday there is absolutely no way that
Ian
those
Dale
votes
is a conservative radio presenter.
are for real, because the way Rishi has been gathering votes, when Kemi came out of it, he would have been predicted to have got I don't know, 30.
Well,
50,
Mr. Dale
but
said
he got 3.
Yeah. Tom Tugendhat had 31 votes, so there were 31 Tugendhat supporting MPs to vote for other candidates. The expectation was that most of them would go to Penny and to Rishi. Penny only got 11, but Rishi only got 3. You can't believe these figures. It's simply not possible.
Because it simply cannot be, which means
they're lending votes out. That means
And do you know why? Because Rishi thinks he can win against Liz
Truss.
more easily than he can win against Penny. This is what all the commentators are saying. What do you think of that?
I just think it's just...
What do you actually think of that?
What I don't understand is why aren't the Labour Party calling this behaviour out and saying this is an example, this is Rishi doing what Boris did. So I hope to God that
directly accused of that, like they're not allowed to say that you lie. It might be one of those weird, quirky things. But the thing I'm really, really angry about is it feels like more of a fix. Because Tobias Ellwood, who was out in, was he in Ukraine? Moldova. He was out in Moldova for a very important meeting.
Explain who Tobias.
He's an MP who's always been always come against Boris, hasn't he? He's not a Boris believer, like a Justin Bieber believer. And there was a vote being held because do you remember Labour wanted to bring a vote of no confidence into the House of Commons? And Boris stymied them by saying, we'll hold a vote of confidence with our own people, which felt a bit dodgy in itself anyway. So everybody is kind of obliged, of course, to then vote for their party. But Tobias Ellwood was away in Moldova and couldn't get back, right, for this vote. And he was immediately sacked.
Well, he had
His
the
whip was taken away, which means he cannot vote for anything. Now, when you think that, what's his name? What was the sexual assault? Pincher. It took them forever and a day to sack him, but they sacked Tobias Ellwood straight away. Now, guess who Tobias Ellwood was likely to have voted for? Penny Mordaunt. Yeah. So they're saying now, if Penny Mordaunt was to lose by 1 vote, all hell is going to break loose. Yeah. Because why was Tobias Ellwood's whip taken so quickly?
Yeah, exactly. So Tobias Ellwood dealt with within 12 hours, got rid of by Boris, but Boris prevaricates over absolutely everyone else that's close to him, needed by him, sympathetic to him.
Now they're saying, oh, well, it was the chief whip. It wasn't Boris, but it was Boris.
But the point is like Faith Goodman says, why can't they have 3 people on the final ballot paper? Why cannot the 3 that are on the paper now? Now, a YouGov poll shows that Rishi Sunak will lose with the Conservative Party. Because what happens, once whoever doesn't get through today, the final 2, the vote goes to the Conservative Party members in the country. So everyone will get a little thing through their letterbox saying, please vote for whoever. And the YouGov poll says that Rishi Sunak looks like he'll lose against either Penny Mordaunt or Liz Truss. But because he feels he stands more of a chance against Liz Truss, because there are a lot of people, us included, lots of people who have a anyone but Liz Truss attitude. He believes that he stands a stronger chance over a period of 4 weeks or whatever it is to kind of convince the the Conservative electorate.
Can you start to do a poll? Do you think that sounds like cheating? Is it just me? But it sounds like it's cheating.
Yeah.
If you remove your greatest adversary, if you remove them by pretending that you haven't got the votes, you haven't passed them.
He's loaning votes.
Cheating,
so what they're actually doing. So what he's actually saying is, I've confidently got this amount of votes. Let's give 5 or 10 to Truss. It won't endanger us, but it will eat into and it will push Penny Mordaunt out of the way. So I'm desperately hoping for Penny Mordaunt up against Rishi Sunak.
So am I now.
Yeah.
I mean, like, now I am like, no. And also, it's all these people coming out now. And this was going on the Radio 4 this morning. He's so clever, that guy on Radio 4, isn't he? And he had a minister on from the Treasury. And he said, you're standing here over and over again saying that you are going to support Liz Truss because of her policies around the tax and the national insurance. But you were here 3 weeks ago completely supporting Rishi's, and Liz is in complete opposition. How do you think that's going to feel for the people of the voters or non-voters? How's that going to feel for us? Well, it's a new start. It's a fresh start. It's like, God, well, it feels very precarious.
Karen B says the general public Conservative members want Truss. Well, there is that feeling, and I think that's why Boris wants Truss. There's a feeling amongst the general public that still Boris. I mean, I don't know if you saw, there was an attempt by some Tory MPs yesterday, 12 of them, to get Boris
onto the list.
Put Boris back on the list. So there's definitely a sense in government that what Boris represents is Truss is a continuation of that. And I hear that, Karen. I mean, I wonder why, but general public Conservative members want Truss.
Does everybody remember 2 things? Truss said, go and fight and we will support you, right? That is in Ukraine. Yeah. That single line, right, could have set off World War III. It's lucky that it didn't, because what he was saying is you were putting almost British troops into Ukraine, NATO into Ukraine. How can you make such a devastating mistake like that and still be in government? That terrifying. What was the other absolutely awful? When she went to Russia and she got all the names wrong and the places wrong. Why do we think Russia hates us so much? Because we keep putting our foot in it diplomatically.
Did you hear that Putin...
She scares the shit out.
Did you also hear that Putin's best mate, who's kind of like trigger-happy nutjob TV presenter, said, oh, don't worry, one of our, is it Sumat missiles? We don't want to blow up the United Kingdom, we just want to blow up England. We don't want to blow up Scotland, we want Ireland to be united, and Wales has done nothing wrong. He said this. We can remove the United Kingdom by just destroying England. How have we managed to make ourselves an enemy numero uno? But Truss is going to try and do that thing. I think what
she's
people do...
But
no, I think she's a shield-bashing sort of, nationalist. So she's like, let's just go and say that we're the angriest and we're the this and we're the that, this and that. And lots of people get very sort of riled and jingoistic.
But we're not in a position to do that with Russia.
But it's just
Russia can just finish us.
Can we just
box need to treat them from
Can we box a little bit more cleverly?
We need to stop showing off saying we're the bravest of all the countries. We're going to give you all the arms. We're going to give you millions and trillions and billions of pounds. We've just got to shut up. Yeah, in my humble opinion. Not that I know anything about anything, but...
what was I going to say?
Just feels a bit dangerous.
London. So the London Borough of Southwark. I heard this on the radio late last night, drifting off to sleep, or not drifting off to sleep. Disruptive children will not be excluded from school, says the London Council. And I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about this? Is this sensible? The idea being that it's felt that there should be a zero exclusions policy, that teachers should be trained in how to deal with trauma as it presents in children and not simply exclude them from school. Exclusion being, a last option or a last extreme solution to many situations, in schools. And
I think teachers have got so much on their plate.
Teachers have got enough on their plate.
I think we have to recognise that we've got a huge problem in this country with our education system, and I think there has to be really very highly trained. If a child is acting out and behaving disproportionately badly to what would be normal for a child, there is always something going on, isn't there?
Yeah, maybe.
There's always something going on. Either they've got a mental health condition, or they've got chaos at home, or they're dealing with maybe parents with all kinds of different problems. And so that child shouldn't be punished, but neither should the majority in the class be punished because one child is messing up the whole of the day. And
But I think we've said it before. You know, schools are not social services. There is a clear distinction
You need to
between the
have
two things. And I do worry that this idea that you don't exclude. I mean, my first reaction to this was, of course, compassion for the child that's going through the. You have to have a situation where children that are excluded are treated properly or dealt with in a more effective
not
fashion.
facing a wall in
not
an
facing a wall, or
in
not
a
just
tiny
left at
little box.
home, or not left to
Yes.
kind of just fall off the radar and all that kind of stuff. But equally, you can't. I mean, I remember at school, you know, in a state school, the distraction in class was humongous, and it just the amount
not
of work
fair.
that you could get done was. And we were all disruptive, you know. Disruption happens with all kids are disruptive at some point. There has to be some kind of punishment, because I tell you, the first thing that this story will do with all kids knowing kids in schools now as we do, they're plugged into this stuff. They'll go, oh, you know, they're thinking they're not.
But you know,
excluding
but
kids.
no, but
But
the
it
other.
will be a green. And let me just finish. It will be a potential green light for worse behaviour.
I don't know about that, but what I do know is exclusion for 1 day and 2 days doesn't work, because if you're because most people see that as a holiday, so that's rubbish. I think attention is what is needed. If somebody is looking for attention with either terrible behaviour or whatever behaviour, I think they need to get the right kind of attention. Now, this is in a perfect world, but everything is costing money. You know, we're looking at the firemen, we're looking at the trains, we're looking at nursing, we're looking at every single thing we're hearing on the radio. We need gazillions amount of millions to sort it out. And I think teachers and schools do get left behind. If you have a child that is causing chaos and is out of control, very soon that child is going to be out of school and continuing to create chaos in society. The actual cost long term for that is going to be more than actually giving them proper attention and possibly the chance to succeed in life. And I listened to the woman from Southwark Council this morning, and of course the media have taken this away a bit.
Absolutely. No,
They
there'll be a
don't
good
want
intention behind it.
people falling out of education
of course.
that haven't got the right support
Of
at
course.
home. That's what she's talking about. But of
But
course,
my
the Nick
heart-
Ferraris of this world, all these lefties, well, what's happened
No,
to
no,
days
no,
when
no,
you
no.
could give people a slipper?
No, but I do think we have a system which, unfortunately, you do have to cater for trauma. You do have to cater for those children. But what gets forgotten is
Is the
the
other
vast
children.
majority of children
Yeah.
that are striving to some extent to learn. And you know, it's difficult enough learning within a system that creates as much anxiety as possible. Has such an arbitrary grading system that from flipping and flopping from year to year, they'll go, oh, we won't give as many A's, we'll give fewer C's, we'll make it easier to get a first. I mean, it's a shock
I think every
system.
area needs some kind of place, I don't know, another school, a school where kids need extra attention, and
That's what Jess Dunn stuff said, yeah.
and those teachers can be specialised teachers
yeah.
who have been given an extra level. And imagine the cost is there, but it will save so much cost down the line if those kids then don't fall out of the system and turn to crime or gangs, because this is what they were talking about at Southwark Council. When those kids fall off, they quite often will fall into the hands of gangs and
Absolutely.
all of that.
Absolutely.
Spend the money when they're small, give them a chance.
We need youth centres again.
Oh,
we
God,
need all sorts of things like that.
But I mean, before the Tories stepped in 12 years ago, all of that was on a really good footing because there had been really good investment in that, but it's just collapsed away.
So I'm just mindful I've got 4 minutes left. So I just wanted to talk a quick story. Careful what you wish for. There was a story that I pulled. I want you to talk about this pregnancy thing. There was just a story. There's a story that came up saying my neighbour's 11-year-old son wants to play with my toddler. I barely know them, so obviously said no. Now life is hell. It's that idea of you can get annoying neighbours who are just rude, violent, aggressive and horrible, but you can also get the kind of neighbour that if you turn down an offer of kind of, oh, let's be friends, it suddenly turns really worse. And it reminds me, I've told the story before, of when I had a guy who used to bully me down the street because my mum and the only lesbians in the village, essentially. And I ended up punching him in the face because I just couldn't take it anymore. And he ended up wanting to be my friend, and him being my friend was more of a burden and stress than him actually bullying me. I so wanted it to be worse. This woman was left terrified because she thought it was strange that her neighbour's 11-year-old and 13-year-old children wanted to play with her toddler, which I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. You know, especially with it's very odd. But the mother of those teenagers took umbrage.
Well, just goes to show her instinct was absolutely bloody right not to let her toddler go and play with the kids.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And what did she do, the neighbour?
Well, the advice to her in the end was to say, I think.
No, what did the bad neighbour do?
The bad neighbour lost her shit. She became rowdy. The kids became rowdy with previous neighbours. They posted dog shit through the letterbox. So lots of shouting, swearing. I managed to get rid of the mum, but only because what's a DP had returned from the shops. What's DP mean? And told her to leave. Partner, or he'd involved the police. Must have been her partner came and said that. But what's a DP? My DP. What's a DP?
Divorced parent.
Co-parent. Anyway, but it just struck me that there are many different ways that a difficult neighbour can be a difficult neighbour. It's not just about them being aggravating. It can also be about dear partner, says Eva Sylvester. Very curious phrase. And finally, pregnancy loss certificates, because I think that's important tomorrow. Snake bites. You said I'd like snake bites becoming more common in the UK.
And this is because of this fashion for people to have more and more exotic.
Do you know anyone with a snake? My mum's girlfriend, the only lesbians in the village when we lived in Greenford, she had lots of snakes, and they would often escape.
Oh.
She had, I think they were called grass snakes or something. Mum, you might know that. Leap here. Oh God, not now. Snake bites. A rise in exotic.
We're all tired, aren't we, Lee? We're all tired.
In the last 11 years, medics have seen and treated 300 victims of snake bites in the UK. That doesn't strike me as a lot. In the New Forest, you get lots and lots of adders. My granddad used to take me for walks in the woods. It sounds very odd. Looking for adders, and then when we'd find them, he'd get a stick. And then he'd kind of, I mean, we're lucky we didn't get. Well, essentially, kind of, say, look here,
God,
Mark. Look, here's an adder, an Adderley. So yeah, lots more snakes are in this country. And their fear is if the temperatures keep getting hotter, some of these escaped exotic snakes could become, native to the country. It's like in Florida,
we don't want that.
In parts of America, alligators, all sorts of kind of exotic pets.
It's like
in
the
America
way we've got parakeets everywhere now.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently parakeets around here, they say, was because Bob Marley, when he performed here, released some. He brought some with him, and they claim it goes back to Bob Marley.
The last place that Bob Marley ever performed was in Crystal Palace Park. Ever performed in this country was in Crystal Palace Park.
Okay, well, before I've got to go now, can we do a welcome to Bailey?
Welcome, Bailey, welcome, Bailey, welcome to the family guest area. Welcome, Bailey, welcome, Bailey, welcome to the family guest area.
And a happy birthday to Simone Turley.
Happy birthday to you, Simone. Happy birthday to you, Simone.
Happy birthday, dear Simone.
Happy birthday to you. Just 1 second.
Yep.
Everyone's always asking me about my dungarees. If you go on Instagram, Jaki, Jackie with a Ki, that's where I get them.
Brilliant. Guys, something is landing on the channel later. God only knows what.